Hey, Cindy Gould here again, and welcome back to Create Your Victorious Life, where we empower you to have victory in every area of your life. And I want to also welcome you to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on your respective app stores, whether you're iOS or Android devices. And while you download, please give us a stellar comment and rating. The app's totally free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. And this week, I am so excited that my dear friend Diana Parra is on with us today. Just so you know, she is a transformational coach, a certified one-star dual elite neuroencoding specialist. She's licensed brain health trainer with Dr. Amen, certified behavioral consultant, certified grief educator. She is also an author and a speaker. And what's really cool is that she doesn't teach theory, all of these things, some of them even unfortunately she's been through. So she's kind of learned through the ropes of her life of ways that she can actually turn that pain that she's had into purpose and be able to help coach you through any situations in your life. I am so excited that she's here. I know that she helps her clients release the past, they regain confidence, and they get to redefine their future and their present. And Diana, I'm so grateful you're here. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Yay. Yes, and yes. And so, as I do with every other guest, I'm going to ask you right out the gate, how have you created victory in the various areas of your life?
Yeah, because that's the key, right?
Right.
How do we create victory in our lives? So it's just, life experience. I went through 4 miscarriages, and I've also gone through some health challenges, and going through those experiences and feeling the way I felt while I was going through those experiences. I've learned to learn and open myself up to learning new things and figuring out how to lead myself basically through all of these, challenges, right? And not allow, life circumstances and challenges to really define who I am or define the kind of life that I have. It's really up to me. So I really had to tap into my own personal power to do that.
Good for you. Is that a cat?
Yes, you can hear him. He's outside the door.
He's like, hey, I want in on this action. That's great. I love it. He's so communicative. So,
yeah.
You know what? It's interesting. The other day I was filling out, how you go to get your annual appointment, they have you update things. And I'm like, they've already got this stuff in the file, why. And it tells you how many pregnancies have you had, how many living, blah, 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 all those things. And it occurred to me, and I don't know why it's never really hit me. And I think there's a disconnect sometimes, right, with certain things. I wrote down and I thought, oh my gosh, I've had 4 miscarriages, and I was thinking about that earlier as I was thinking into my time with you today. And, and the impact that actually has on you, the mama, and then on your mate, and on if you already have children or even grandparents or other family members, the actual impact that really has. If you're open to it, I'd love to kind of dive a little bit and unpack a little bit of that, maybe your experience, and then how you've dealt with it and what you're doing with it.
Sure. It definitely has obviously a huge impact on the woman going through it. It really, for me, I went into depression. Well, actually, the first thing I did was not allow myself to grieve and not allow myself to feel the way that I felt. I feel the pain and the loss, right?
Right.
So my first, response was to just get busy, get back to life, get back to work, and move on, and
Mm.
pretend everything was fine. It was okay. So I had a miscarriage, just nothing you can do about it. Move on, right, and keep on living life. And really, what that was me trying to, hide from the pain and not feel, the immense loss.
Right.
I have to say, I've spoken with, many women who have also miscarried, and it is different. Just like any loss, it's personal, it's different for everyone. We all grieve differently and we process things differently, right? So there's no right or wrong. But for
Right.
me, I was just trying to like avoid the pain,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so that actually led to more pain down the road because
Mm.
like I said, eventually what ended up happening was I went into a depression, and I felt really lost. I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore, um, as a person, especially as a woman, because okay, if I can't have kids, especially after the fourth one, it's like, okay, this is just not going to happen for me.
Right.
So who am I? I want to be a mom.
Right.
Um, but I can't have kids. And what is my husband thinking? Is he really, does he still love me? Does he still want me? Because, you know what I mean? I started to feel like, well, maybe I'm damaged, you
Right.
know?
Right.
Um, and so that really, like I said, I went into a depression. And during that time, my husband and I had already adopted our three kids. We have three adopted children. And they came with their own trauma and their own set of, circumstances and challenges. So all of that mixed in was just one big disaster, pretty much, because I couldn't really be there for them in the way that they needed me to be, because I had my own pain, my own trauma, and it was just a really bad combination. And what started to happen was when I saw that things were getting really bad with, my kids and my husband and myself. I mean, I alienated myself from people. I disconnected. I felt alone. And so I realized that something needed to change because this was just not going, down a good path.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and so one day I found myself, holding a bottle of pills and just wanting to not be here anymore because I couldn't take the pain anymore. And then something stopped me, and I put the bottle of pills away, and I called for help, and I called a professional, and I started therapy to bereavement counseling, to grieve, and to allow myself to understand really what I was feeling, what was happening, and how I could lead myself through that. And that was really where I started my healing journey. And then after that, I found the world of personal development, and I started, reading, attending seminars, and just surrounding myself with people who were, into personal development, and really um, diving deeper into myself and understanding what was happening,
Right.
and why I was doing the things I was doing, why I was feeling the things that I was feeling, and how I could really lead myself through that, and what I could do to help myself, and that way other people could also help me.
Right.
um, and yeah, and that allowed me to open up to my husband, because that was one of the things that I didn't really do. We talked about it, but it was like, like a short conversation. And then if we both like kind of wanted to avoid that. And I came to realize that we really needed to sit down and have a conversation and talk about what that experience was like for him, and how
Right.
he felt about it, and what that experience was like for me. And really for both of us to, in a way, come together and grieve together the loss.
Right.
And so that when that happened, that was very powerful, especially for our relationship, because it helped us to kind of find our way back in a way, and reconnect,
Mhm.
um, and then start to move forward from that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times we think because the woman, and I don't mean we like everybody, but I know even in my processing, I was sensitive to, to my, to everybody else actually in the family. And yet it's still so personal because you're carrying that child in you. And so a lot of times, or we do the other thing where we're attentive to everybody else and we're not, like you said, you're not even grieving your own process. I know for me, I was just like, okay, well, back to work. And plus I had other children and I had things to deal with, and I was married at the time. So I had, all of that, and I did that on purpose. That was the way that I numbed it. That was the way that I numbed out. And then I noticed for myself with the last miscarriage, I had always been I had been pretty fit since having for me, my last miscarriage, it was 20 years apart almost from my last birth. And so, I had one, I got pregnant unexpectedly, in my 40s. And so it was very different for me. And then I got super duper excited about it. Like, okay, this is going to be fun because I would be completely different mom, I'm so much older, et cetera. And when that happened, I was 6 months pregnant. And so it was and I had 20 years prior, had actually lost a child when I was almost 6 months pregnant. So I had that experience twice. And I remember for myself at that point with the second one, what I didn't even realize is I gained a mass amount of weight, and I would put that smile on my face, right? And still, but inside, I was just like, and I didn't even realize that I was struggling with that and during that time, right? And then I learned a really amazing process for myself to be able to process through that grief. But it was very painful, and really it was even the things that you said, well, like, is there something wrong with my body? I mean, what's, like all the things that you said, like, am I broken? And then at the time, even, my children were a different age. And so they went through a different type of grieving process than when they were babies and that happened, younger toddlers, et cetera, when that happened, and it's very personal. Like you said, there's no right or wrong to grieve. We can give a lot of tips and insights and ideas and things that have worked for many, many people, right? But it really boils down to, what are you thinking? And that causes how you're feeling, right? And then it causes what you're doing, and then it causes your outcome. So for me, where my thoughts were at caused me to feel that way. I ended up, and my outcome was I gained a ton of weight, and I put on, and then, thank goodness I've been able to release all of that. I know for you, your outcome was you are like, holy smack, I have a bottle of pills in my hand, right? And then, what a blessing that you actually put it all down and that you called and got help. And your credit that you got help. I did the same thing. I got a coach, and for me, and I got the help that I needed to help me process through things. And then I inundated myself like you did with a lot of personal development and a lot of other things like, okay, how do I really govern my thoughts to make so that they're resourceful, so that I have the outcome in my life that I want to have? Because, we live in this world, and unfortunately, not great things happen sometimes. People do move back home to heaven. We lose jobs. I always call that as kind of a realignment, because to me, it's like the biggest opening you could have when you release from one job is what's happening next, but even that, or divorce, or even close friends, you have a falling out, or you may have discord in your home with one of your children, and maybe a lot of conflict and grief, and that causes grief, right? I mean, there's so many different ways that we could trip that grief wire. What would you suggest to people when they realize that they're in grief?
I think the most important thing is, and the first thing is to to understand that there is no right or wrong way to grieve, right? There is no right or wrong length of time to grieve. You know,
Right.
a lot of times people, you know, they mean well, but you know, let's say you've experienced a loss and it's been, I don't know, like 6 months, and a friend or family member will say, well, I think it's time to move on, right? I think it's time that you move on with your life. Well, you know, that person may need more time, and that's okay. And it's not a matter, you know, I think in our society we tend to think of a lot of these, you know, what I would call like dark things like grief or loss and death. Number
Right.
one, we don't want to talk about it. No one wants to talk about it.
Right.
Number two, you know, we want to avoid that. And number three, if it happens, we want to move through that quickly, right? And I mean, look at me. I wanted to move through that, you know, the losses like really fast and just pretend it didn't happen. And really, what I believe we need to do is just embrace it. It's part of life. We're going to experience loss. We're going to experience pain. Embrace it. And, you know, the only way out of it is going through it, right? We can't
Yep.
go around it. So
Yep.
allow yourself to feel the way you feel. It's okay.
Mhm.
And that's actually going to help you to move through that instead
Yes.
of getting stuck in it, which is what happened to me and happens to, you know, a lot of my clients. You
Yep.
know, we don't process the grief, and so we get stuck, and
Yeah.
we're not even aware that that's what happened.
Right. Because being stuck and where you're at becomes your norm and it
Yep.
becomes your default. And so you don't even know because you're operating in that you're still going to work or maybe you're not going to work, but you're still flipping channels or you're still, you know what I mean? Whatever you're doing. And it becomes the way that what you've created for that season of your life. And I know, you know this, and a lot of our audience who regularly watch us know that my precious son Mana moved back home to heaven in 2021, and and he had never even been sick. Like, I don't even remember him sick as a baby. So, for him to get sick at the end of July and 2 weeks later not be here was unbelievable to me. Like, even when he was going through that, it didn't ever occur to me that he wasn't going to be here. Like, it really
Mhm.
didn't. And I have an enormous amount of faith as well. So I'm like, I was just sharing this with a friend yesterday. I really was thinking, and I remember I reread through some of my journals during those 2 weeks, through a few pages, and I was surprised because my journals were filled with gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful that that he's healing, that these are happening, and I read, I can't wait for him to wake up so he can tell me what my brother's telling him while he's hanging out in heaven in his coma, or what my
Mhm.
niece Chelsea, who's there in heaven, or my nephew Tynan. I can't wait to hear what all these people have to say, what my grandparents, are saying to him. And what's interesting is one of the things that I really recognize, which is I recognize more profoundly walking through this season with that, even this August, it'll be 3 years,
Mhm.
and I still, just last night had like this little tear fest about it. Just
Mhm.
something comes up and I describe it. I'm Hawaiian, as you know, and Sicilian, but I describe it. If you've ever been to Hawaii, you're sitting on the beach, it's sunny, 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 and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like you don't even see a cloud, there's like a mist of rain that comes over you, and it's over you as quickly as it's gone. And that's how
Mhm.
I see the waves of grief. That,
Mhm.
sometimes they're there a little bit longer because it might be something significant, came up and you remembered. And other times it's your body's way, for me, of releasing something that got stuck in my body, that
Mhm.
it's like it's there and I'm done. It's like, boom, okay. And then I'm back to whatever I was doing. And not because I'm stuffing it, but it's
Mhm.
really just goes that way.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck. Holy cow, right? Like, I know when that happened with Mana, and as you know, I had several things happen that year, and so there was a lot of opportunity for me to get stuck in grief and sorrow. And that was a concern for me. I thought, you know what? I just need to ride these waves. I need to
Mhm.
like channel my inner Hawaiian and surf the heck out of these waves, right? So that I can still just smoothly land where I need
Yeah.
to. And thank goodness for neuroencoding for me and for some of the processes that help me not get stuck there. What have you done since, getting therapy and all the beautiful personal development things that you've done to help yourself not to get stuck?
Yeah, definitely. I use a lot of our neuroencoding techniques, and it's really for me. It's now having that awareness, right?
Mm,
That I am not my thoughts, you
right,
know, and kind of like being able to separate from that.
right.
Okay, I'm thinking this way. First of all, like if I start to feel, um, down or whatever, it's like, okay, recognize the way that I'm feeling, and then go back. It's like, okay, well, what am I thinking? What am I focused on?
Mhm.
That's you know causing me to feel this way, and
Right,
then kind of like change those thoughts or question them. Is that true? Like, is that absolutely
right,
true?
right.
We start thinking we're this or the other thing, and then we believe that that's what it is. And so I question the my beliefs and my thoughts, and then I started to move through that. So for me, that's really what helps, is to go back and like I said, number one, recognize that I'm feeling it. Because a lot of times we're like rushing through life. We're
Yes,
just doing, going, and we're not even aware of how we're feeling, like moment to moment.
right.
So for me, it's important sometimes, even like throughout the day, I will stop what I'm doing
Mhm.
and just check in with myself. Okay,
Good.
like how am I feeling? You know, like what's
Yeah.
going on in my body? And sometimes I do like what they call a body scan. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, so like, is there any tension that maybe I need to get up and walk around and release that tension, or maybe I need to go get a glass of water, a drink of water, or something, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's always for me going back and like connecting with myself and checking
Yes,
in,
yes.
and then figuring out like, okay, what do I need? Do I need to do, like a stop technique, or what do I need to go for a walk? What's going to help me? You
Right,
know?
right.
But I think that's something that it's just we're constantly just doing, going, trying to achieve and achieve, and so we're not even aware of like what's going on with us. And I think it's important to just kind of sometimes just slow down and check in with yourself.
100%. And I think that you brought a really valid point of checking in with yourself daily. So some of the things that you said, and it caused me to think most people, and a lot of you that are listening either today while the show's going or in the future, you don't even realize that you can ask yourself, how are you doing? Right? Or that that's even a thing, or that
Mhm.
you can check in with yourself and you can see, okay, right now I don't feel joy, or I'm not feeling happy or grateful or any of those things. Right now I'm just freaking sad. And it's okay to be
Mhm.
sad. I think that those things, you can give yourself permission to take a pause, to not have to do all the things, to Uber your food in for a meal. You know what I mean? To go to the drive through. You don't have to be all those things and keep all the balls in the air. Sometimes you can just put all the balls in the ball bag, right? And you can just lay
Mhm.
down and you can just flip channels if you need to. I know that one of the things, like what you also said, which I loved when because both of us are brain health coaches as well. And I love what Dr. Amen says, is it true? Is it really true? Like,
Mhm.
our thoughts, you don't have to believe every stupid thing you think. I mean, it's like, and where did we learn our beliefs from? And have you ever given yourself permission to question your beliefs? Are they
Mhm.
are your beliefs even true? I mean, are those things accurate? And because from where we think, so we feel, and where we
Mhm.
feel, so we do, and then we have. And so if what I have right now is the land of suck, then work your way backwards, right? The way that you
Yeah.
said, okay, so what did I do to get that? What
Yep.
was I feeling to cause me to do that, to have that? Well, heck, what was I thinking? Slash, what are my beliefs? Because they're, that's kind of the chicken and the egg thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and all of that together, I think, is so important to be able to navigate. I have a group right now that I'm coaching, which is super fun. And we were talking the other night. My lesson that I was going over was about water and about the fact that our bodies are approximately, depending upon what organ, et cetera, but on the average, 80% water. Our brain
Mm-hmm.
is too. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Masaru Emoto, and who is a scientist and a researcher. And if you're not, look him up. You will be fascinated. I'll send you some slides when we're done. And any of you that are watching, reach out to me on social, Cindy Gould, or Create Your Victorious Life, and I will send you these slides. It's amazing. So what he did was, and is he took water and then he put it in different jars and then he tested it, microscopically. And on one jar, he put words like love, gratitude, joy, etc. On another jar, he put words like you make me sick, you're disgusting, whatever. That jar, the water looked like dirty mud almost, even on on the slides, after just sitting for a few days. The other jar, um, when you're kids and you cut out those beautiful snowflakes. So the
Mm-hmm.
other jar was like snow crystals, breathtaking, like breathtaking. Now let me submit this to you, because then he had about 500 people sending beautiful thoughts and prayers to one jar of water, and then people sending ugly, nasty thoughts to another. And he tested them, same thing, by thought.
Wow.
Then he
Wow.
had people, and then he had people screaming at water, and then being joyful. I love you, ooey gooey, go for guts. I love you. You're so beautiful. All the stuff, right? Same thing. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he played classical music, and he names off all these different classical songs and different beautiful symphonic, gorgeous, melodic, and then heavy metal. Same thing. And
Mm.
what was hard for me, because when I work out, some of the songs I work out to are like crazy, insane heavy metal. I'm like, oh no, because if we are on the average 80% water, those crystals are being formed in our body. That yucky is being formed in our body. What are we thinking? What
Mm.
are we allowing to feed us? When they say things get stuck in your body, I would submit to you that it's through that.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Yeah.
just muscle, but the water that's in your muscle, the water that carries your blood, what's in your organs. How do people really get sick?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Yeah.
not at ease in your body? Dis-ease. Pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I completely believe it, and we really have to be cognizant of how we speak to ourselves, how we talk to ourselves, and how the beliefs that we have. And again, like you said, we're not even aware of that we can check in with ourselves. We don't, no one teaches us that, right? I think they should teach little kids in school to do that, like take time out and do that, right? um, so I think it's important to always, I mean, because everything starts with you, right?
Right.
With self. So we
Right.
need to really start developing that daily practice of getting in touch with ourselves, and how we're feeling, and what is it that we need. A lot of time we don't even give ourselves what we need, right? Because we don't even know that that's what we need. Maybe you need a break, maybe you need, like I said, some water.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it's really important, and that's those studies, I'm sure, like it's amazing, and that's exactly it.
It is. It's super cool, and one of the things that I did it a few weeks ago in our coaching, in the group coaching, was I had them grab a journal, and it's one of those things, because you and I both believe what you write, you invite, right? And
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm going to have them write these things down. Are they re-inviting them back to themselves? Which, but what I really wanted them to do was write every single thought you have.
Hmm.
Now, some of these girls are married. I'm like, hey, I don't want to know the thoughts when your husband walks in the room. I don't want to know,
Right.
like don't give me graphics, but every single thought that you have, and really look for the patterns. Look at,
Mm-hmm.
because you and I know that most of the thoughts people have aren't new. They go
Mm-hmm.
regurgitate the same
Yeah.
what's, on the daily, and even when you're driving in traffic. Like, and so I said, keep that journal with you and just don't look down when you're driving, but just write out what that thought is,
Mm-hmm.
when the guy cuts you off or whatever, when you're at work and you see the same faces, or you dealing with a client, or you're a teacher and you've got that student or the other teacher that maybe you're not really fond of, just all the thoughts you're having. Because what they did was is I had them trace it back to what they have now in their lives,
Mm.
and work your way back up.
Powerful.
What was I thinking? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
was on the class that Vinu and Tammy Tantella had the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal. You get the chance to take it, do it. Um, one of the things they said was kind of prickly. You're responsible for the responses that you get. And
Mm.
when I've
Ouch.
heard that, yeah, ouch, right? And you know what? And it's funny because I've said that before, and I use that in my group as well, something similar to that. And I get pushback. What are you talking about? I'm not responsible for that, the way that guy, treated me or whatever.
Mhm.
What would you say to that? What do you think about that?
I think I agree. I think we are responsible, right? And we don't want to be responsible. We don't like hearing that we're responsible, but ultimately we are, because we are responsible for our lives, everything that we have and everything that we don't have. And we don't like to hear that, because most of us, most people don't want that responsibility, right? It's easier to blame something out there
Right.
than to take responsibility and say, okay, like, what do I need to do? Right?
Right.
What do I need to work on? And a lot of this, I mean, personal development, working on ourselves, it's hard. It's hard work. And
Yes.
a lot of the time it's not pretty, you know, it's not glamorous. And we have to look at parts of ourselves that we may not like, but that's okay, because I believe that we should embrace everything, like every single part of ourselves, because that's who we are, and it's beautiful,
Right.
right?
Right.
um and I think people shy away from taking responsibility, because it's a lot of work, you know. It's work, and it's hard, and it's not pretty, and it's just easier to blame something out there, you know.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, and what's interesting is that I know, even for myself, having gone through, divorce and those kind of things, and somebody was saying to me, and they were saying not nice things, not about me, and and why aren't you mad about this, or that kind of stuff. And sure, I think I had enough in that happened in that situation that I could have thrown blame or shade or whatever. And it's like, you know what? I'm the one that woke up every day and chose to show up there. I'm the one that decided, to give these chances, these opportunities, these things, and regardless. And so what I ended up doing, and Vinu, who was coaching me even through parts of that, um, we were looking for the gold. Like, okay, Cindy, what's the treasure here for you? What's the gold
Mhm.
for you? What can you do with this that's going to, again, working up everything? How can I think about this in a way that I'm feeling resourceful about it, in a way that
Mhm.
I do something positive with it, in the way that I end up having an amazing result because of it? Right?
Mhm. Yeah.
When we talk about that, because I know you come from that lens also, um, how do you implement that maybe in your life, or even with your marriage or with your children? How do you do that?
I still sometimes it's still hard, right? But that's when we have to really challenge ourselves and say, this is not going to be easy, but it's ultimately it's up to me.
Right.
And again, I start to question my beliefs, what I'm believing about the situation or the person. And then I do, like a reframe, and it's kind of more like, okay, what can I learn from this? Right? This is showing up in my life. What
Yep.
is it here to show me, to tell me? What can I learn from this? And then take the lesson, right? Because
Yes.
every like challenge, every difficulty that we experience and face in life, it's an opportunity for growth.
Yep.
And that's been huge for me. Like, if I that's one of the main things that I've learned and I've taken away from my experience is, to look at it that way, instead of looking at it as like, oh my gosh, now I have this huge problem, or this really sucks, or this is making me feel this way. It's looking at it as like, okay, hey, this is kind of good, because I'm growing, I'm
Yay.
expanding,
Yes.
right? So okay, it's not easy, it's not fun, but I'm growing.
Right.
So what am I learning, and then how can I take that, moving forward in my life, you
Right.
know
Right.
so I think it's important. I think that's an important piece, to really look at our challenges as opportunities for growth.
100%. In fact, instead of using the word challenges, I use that word opportunity. And
Mm-hmm.
I ask myself, like, I remember my mom used to say when I was younger, she would say, okay, so what now what? So what now what? And then, or even the other question that you and I probably both ask is, then what? Like, when you're thinking about different things, then what? Then what? And I
Mm-hmm.
know for myself, some of the times when I was in some of the biggest opportunities that were given to me to grow, I would say, okay, how do I make this feel like I just won the freaking lotto? Like, how do I turn this into, holy smack, I just won the
Mm-hmm.
lotto. This is going to turn my life this way. This is going to be what I want. And this is why. And because I like to see the end, in sight, and I like to see it as done. So what is it that you really want, Cindy? And how is this fork in the road, or how is this pivot now making you one step closer to what you really want?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you pull that towards you or magnetize it? Right?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's really looking at it, as, this is happening for me, right? Not to me. And if
Yes.
we change just that one word, like, it's happening for me, not to me, it's, you feel, it's number one, I think it's like, it's for me, so I have more control over this, right?
Yes.
Versus
Yeah.
to me, it's, I have no control. I'm pretty much a victim here.
Right.
So I
Right.
think, yeah, so I think it's important to, you know, it's the language that we use, and it's reframing how we look at things and circumstances and situations. And like you said, I love it. Like, opportunities, there's always an opportunity. Life is always giving us an opportunity for
Yes. Whether
growth.
you like it or not.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. And
go ahead, honey.
yeah, I was going to say, and if, like you said, like it or not, like, things are going to happen. If you're here and you're alive, things will happen, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
why not kind of come to terms with that, accept it, and then, look at it from like, okay, well, what am I going to learn? Like, what can I learn from this, and how is this going to help me to grow? And what
Right.
an amazing person am I going to become, because of this experience?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And who do
just
I
the way
get to meet because of it? Who do I get to love because of it? What do I
it.
get to give or serve because of it? What do I receive because of it? I know one of the things that I started saying for myself, that things are happening for me, not to me, and they're happening because of me. And, because of my faith also, I remember at Mana's celebration of life, my son's celebration, my son Nicholas gave the brother's eulogy, and I gave a mama's eulogy. And one of the first things that I said was, and it was so important for me to reconcile this, was that I trust God, and that regardless of what happened or any of that, that I knew that my son was in safe hands. And so for me, and I knew that he was where he's supposed to be now. And I came to that conclusion with my own conversations with God, and that doesn't mean they were pretty. And that doesn't mean that I wasn't, like, unhappy about it and angry and sad and all that full gamut that you would feel. But I did reconcile that within myself. And so because of that, my life has that. I encoded myself for joy, gratitude, and my faith. Like, you
Mm.
know what? At the end of the day, I have a Father in heaven that loves me, and he guides my steps, and he's given me the Holy Spirit to guide me. So I stay anchored there on purpose, knowing that, okay, like you said, we're in a fallen world. Cruddy things are going to happen. That's just,
Mhm.
people aren't always going to be honest. People are going to, maybe betray you or hurt you or say unkind things or do just awful things even. And at the end of the day, it's like, you know what, though, I will be okay, and I'm
Mhm.
going to be fine. And then here's an opportunity. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
Basically, what's here for me to dig up and enjoy, right?
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I think also, like one thing I teach my clients, and I do that myself, is when you're going through one of these, opportunities, right? um, it's really to like go back and like remember all the other things that you've gone through, like all the other opportunities, and how you led yourself through that, and how you came out on the other side. And it's like
Yes.
just remember that you've got this, right?
Yeah.
You can do it, and of course, absolutely. I think everything we go through, it makes us expand and grow, and it makes us stronger. So it's like, okay, well, I went through that and that and that, and I learned a whole lot, and I grew, and I became, a better version of myself. So okay, I've got this. It
Yes.
sucks, but I've got it.
Yes. Well, it's important, I think, to rehearse your victories.
Yeah.
To rehearse them. You've had many.
Hmm.
So many, like there's little snapshots and sometimes big snapshots, seasons of our life where there were painful, awful things. But guess what? You walked through that, you ran through it, you bulldozed through it, you might have even slept your way through it, whatever, but you got through it. And to your point, it's so important to remind ourselves, like you said, and to remember,
Hmm.
put our members back together. I love that word because it causes you to really, hey, you know what? I did do that. One of the things I like to do, and I bet you do this too, is I stand in the mirror and I remind myself,
Hmm.
hey,
Yeah.
Cindy, remember this? And how did you do that? Oh gosh, you slayed that girl. And I
Hmm.
remind myself when I'm having a day or when I have to do something that might be a little scary, and I remember there's a thing in the Bible where King David is saying that, and I slayed, before he goes to knock Goliath out, with 5 stones and his little self compared to the big giant, right? And that giant's so metaphoric for any giants we have in our life. And he said, oh yeah, I slayed the bear, I did the lion, da da da. He rehearses those victories. It's the same thing. When you do that, what happens to us? You know this because you're a brain health coach, right? What happens to someone when they start stacking that stuff? What happens?
You really start rewiring your brain,
Mhm.
and programming yourself to kind of default to that, to
Yeah.
that better, feeling, better version, better, action, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think it's really, I love the thing that what you said about rehearsing, and that's really what it is.
Mhm.
The more we rehearse, the more that we're encoding our brains, right,
Right.
to default to that
Right.
feeling, right? So
Right.
yeah.
And when I rehearse it, I go back to the end result, what I had, what
Hmm.
I did, what I was feeling, what I was thinking. And when I'm rehearsing each one of those things from my thoughts to my result, what happens is your brain doesn't know the difference, right?
Right.
Between it's happening right now or it happened then. And as you said, you're rewiring and the neurons that wire together. So you're
Hmm.
firing off all those memories of, yep, I did that. And I stood up there and I spoke to those 20,000 people. And I stood up there and I did this. And I told my boss, no, that's not acceptable. Whatever those things
Hmm.
are. I had the tough conversation when somebody hurt my feelings, or the other simple things, I had to pick out with my daughter-in-law and my mom and my children, the casket, or for my father, we all did that as siblings, all those things, right? Or
Yeah.
you the tough conversations with the doctors, and
Yeah.
you did those things, and now look
Yeah.
how that turned out, right? And you
Yeah.
showed up in your life.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it too. One of the things I love about you, Diana, is that you show up. Like, you show up. You show up in your life. You show up every day. You show up for your clients. You show up for your family. And most importantly, you show up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Some days it may not be pretty, and some days
Yeah.
people don't know that it's not pretty, because you may
Yeah.
get ugly in the bathroom and you come out and you're fine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's true. And thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And it's something that I've had to learn, right? Because what I realized is, in my previous life, I wasn't really showing up for myself, because I had that mentality that things were happening to me and not
Yes.
for me. So
Yes.
I had no or very little personal power, right? And then once I learned all these things, and I led myself through these things, and I got the help, and I rewired my brain for success, right?
Yes. Yes.
Then I now know, I know that, like, that's part of my identity. I'm going to show up no matter what. And it might be uncomfortable, but I'm going to show up, because I now have, confidence. I have self-belief, self-trust, you know,
Yes.
and I had to work on all these things. I had to create these things in me, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and a lot of times, again, they're not things that we're taught, you know, and we have to seek them out. And it's really putting them into practice. It's not just reading that in a book, or taking a workshop and learning, or, it's
Right.
like, okay, go do it. Like you said, I love the what you said about standing in front of the mirror, right? Because you're rehearsing all that. You're
Right.
rehearsing all that. And now you're really not just, rewiring your brain, but it's you can tap into that emotion much faster,
Right.
because you've rehearsed it so much that it's like right there. So all you need to just kind of reach for it, and boom, you're there, right? So I think that's great. And I think we lost Cindy. I think she froze.
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Sorry.
back.
Yeah, I'm back. It's like, oops, connection lost, it said. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? But I agree with what you were saying. And I think, and I want to tell the audience, like, oh, well, I don't have a mirror at my desk. You got a phone. You
Yep.
take selfies. You can, and I would invite you to vlog you rehearsing it, because other times, and stick your headphones on and hear yourself back, or run to the car, and we got 2 minutes. Holy smoke. Run to the car, and pull that mirror down in the car and
Yeah.
do it. Sitting in traffic and no cars are moving, and you're having a panic attack, do it. But
Yeah.
anyway, we've got 2 minutes. So, hey, where can everybody find you, my precious friend?
So you can connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at Diana Parra 888. And you can visit my website, dianaparainternational.com. Would love to
Yay.
connect.
Yes. Yes. And you also have a free online Facebook group for women who have miscarried, correct?
I don't have that one yet, but I
Okay.
do have a Facebook group. It's called She Thrives.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Look her up for that. And I want to thank you so much for being on our show today. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. You can also find us, and we can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check it out, spanglishworld.ca, for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thank you so much for being here. Find me on Create Your Victorious Life. I'd love to hear from you. I do a free drawing once a month for a free coaching session from anybody who reaches out to me from the show. Thank you so much, and have such a blessed day. Thanks again, Diana.
Oh, thank you.
So great. Yes. Thank you.